Mermaid. Now that's a story I love. A mermaid wants to be a human, she falls in love with a human prince, a sea witch grants her legs but takes her voice in exchange and gives her 3 days to kiss the prince, otherwise she'll turn back into a mermaid. Long story short, they don't get to kiss, so she turns back into a mermaid, but then her father grants her legs so that she can be with the man that she loves. Not in the original by Hans Christian Andersen. The beginning is pretty much the same, young mermaid wants to be a human, but in this version she has 5 older sisters who are all born a year apart. So one by one they're all granted permission to go up to the surface, and then they come back with loads and loads of stories about what this wonderful world above the sea is like. But for the first 5 daughters, when they turn 15, they're allowed to come and go from the surface as much as they want, and the novelty sort of wears off. It's just another everyday thing they're allowed to do. But the little mermaid, the youngest daughter, has to watch all of her sisters go up to the surface and come back with these amazing stories. Finally, she turns 15 and she's granted permission to go up to the surface. And when she gets to the surface, there's a ship, and she sees this prince on the ship and she thinks I quite like the look of him. But there's a big storm going on and suddenly the ship starts to sink and she watches the prince fall from the ship into the water. And she thinks, great, now he can just come and live with me in the sea. And then remembers that's not quite how humans work. So she decides to save him, and I think that makes her a pretty badass princess, seeing as she's saving the prince. Now from this story I found out that a mermaid's lifespan is 300 years. But she goes back home and asks her grandmother whether humans can live for just as long as mermaids can, and her grandmother says no. And the little mermaid says, well, I'd gladly give all of my 300 years for just one day of being a human. And her grandmother says, don't be stupid, love. And then the little mermaid asks if there's any way to become immortal, which is a bit confusing because she's just said she'd give up all of her life for one day of being a human, and now she wants to live forever. Make up your mind. But her grandmother tells her that to become immortal and live forever, you've got to make a man love you more than his parents and get him to marry you. Now I think grandma's making this up. It sounds like the sort of things that parents tell their kids to make them do the things that they want to do, like eat your crusts and you'll get curly hair, marry a nice boy and you'll live forever. So the little mermaid kind of just gives up on the idea and says, alright, I guess 300 years is enough. But a sea witch has overheard all of this and she comes up to the little mermaid and says, you want legs? I can get you legs. For some reason in my head she's one of those people with a trench coat on, and she opens it up and she's got just loads of gold watches and tat to sell. But she tells the little mermaid that she can give her legs but only for 3 days, and in that time she's got to make the prince love her more than both his parents and get him to marry her. I can see why in the Disney version they only said she needed to kiss him within 3 days, because getting a guy to love you more than his parents and marry you in 3 days is a little bit extreme. But the witch says that the mermaid needs to give up her voice in exchange for the legs. And so the witch cuts out her tongue. It's none of that Disney stuff, it's literally tongue hacking in this one. So the little mermaid washes up on shore and she's got legs, but she's got no clothes on because that's just what mermaids are like. And the prince just happens to find her. Anyone could have found her. It could have been an old homeless person, but no, it's a prince. The prince, not even a prince, it's the prince. The exact prince that she saved has found her. Just... But of course she can't say anything to him and explain, so the prince takes pity on her and takes her into the castle. But as she stands up, it's described in the book that she feels like she's standing on the points of knives and needles. Now, I love my boyfriend to pieces, but if I was told that I had to make him love me more than his parents, get him to marry me in 3 days, I'd lose my tongue and my voice because of it, and my legs would be in constant pain, I'm sorry, but that's not happening. So now it's come to a point in the prince's life where he has to take a wife. His parents are telling him, you've got to marry someone, and his parents make him marry another princess. And the Little Mermaid is absolutely heartbroken. But suddenly, all 5 of the Little Mermaid sisters appear out of the sea, and they're all bald, they've all got no hair. And they say, we've given our hair to the witch in exchange for this knife. Now I'm sure they would have been able to find a knife floating around at the bottom of the sea somewhere if they looked hard enough, but I mean... too late. But they tell the Little Mermaid that if she kills the prince with this knife and let his blood spill onto her feet, they'll merge into one, they'll become a fishtail again, and she'll be a mermaid and she won't have to die. But obviously she's in love with the prince, so she's not going to be able to kill him. But instead, she throws herself into the sea and becomes sea foam. This isn't the Little Mermaid that I grew up with. She doesn't marry the prince, and he marries someone else, and it seems like he doesn't care about her at all. She almost kills him, and she dies. I think I need to lie down for a little bit.
Stupid, stupid. We're stupid, stupid. We're stupid, stupid. And you love me, and I love you.